All right? In Pennsylvania, all right, there's two lanes here. Okay? On the left side is the state districts, 253, 50 state senators, 203 state reps. Rep. Webster, is that enough? 203? Do we need more? Is there room in that chamber for another 50 or 60?
I can't explain why we have to have a Senate.
But it's an amazingly large number. Our population in Pennsylvania, they're not really growing. We're kind of plateaued now for the last two census, around 13 million or so. But we still have 203. So all of these maps for the state seats in Harrisburg are driven by our Pennsylvania Constitution, of which I knew nothing about before I signed up. And there's not a whole lot of language here, except in Article 2, Section 16. All districts with the same level of office as state rep or state senator must have reasonably equivalent populations. Districts must be geographically, here's our phrase, compact and contiguous. When anyone looks at maps, I'm no different than anyone else, the first thing I do is go, shape, a little different. What's going on there? It gets people's attention. And the other thing that people do, because I've been using these maps for 4 years for all kinds of events, community events, whatever they may be, the first thing most people do is walk up and do what? They point to where they live. And they ask the question, what's going on there? Now, I will tell you, it's not a bad thing. It's very, very natural. Most people don't know who their state rep or state senator is. They just don't. Again, a lot of it has to do with media coverage. Rep. Webster does a very good job of sending out communications and letting people know. But it is an education process because from a media standpoint, Harrisburg does not get a lot of encouraging what's happening, who are the players, what's going on. It only usually happens when something scandalous or something negative is going on. But that's really most folks don't really pay a lot of attention to what's going on in government until something bad or something they don't like happens. But in Pennsylvania, this is the guidelines, not a whole lot. To draw our congressional maps, the people we send to Washington, it's a straight up legislative process. The legislature, the Pennsylvania House, the Pennsylvania Senate gets together, they draw the maps. Now, who will do that? I'll show you in a minute. But it then has to go to the governor, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see that the state legislature drives the legislative process. There is no constitutional bounds. There is the Voting Rights, the Federal Voting Rights Act, which serves as a guardrail of sorts. So it's been weakened. To keep an eye on the congressional districts as well. But the congressional districts is all about a straight legislative process. In 2018, most of you might have been here or in high school or so, these maps went under litigation, serious litigation. Legal and Voters, ACLU, and a number of others, to get to this example here in Montgomery County. But this was not the map for our 18 congressional seats that was drawn in 2011, 10 years ago. This map was redrawn in 2018 under the direction of the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, who hired their own map to redraw the 18 congressional districts for Pennsylvania. This is not what their districts are mostly taught. We don't want courts drawing maps. This is not a cool thing. But if you take some time tonight and come back, this was an example just down in our area here, Montgomery, Southeast Pennsylvania, in 2011 when the congressional maps came down from the legislative process on the right-hand side. Pennsylvania zoomed to the top. We were, I think we finished top 3 in most gerrymandered congressional states. It was bad news, and lots of people went nuts, a lot of litigation. Nothing about the process was good. I lived in an area, I was 3 blocks away, I'm down in White Marsh Township, where my district was carved, my township was carved into 2 different districts. One of those districts, separation is 1 street, about 4 blocks from where I live. 1 street separating them. I won't go into the whys or wherefores, but you can draw your own conclusions of that. But we took a lot of whatever the legislative process was tossed out, and we wound up courts drawing out. We do not want that process to happen. We want the legislature, we want this process to work for all of us in some form or fashion. But that's the basic rules of how do we do that. Let's take a look at who does it. Remember I told you before, it's a small circle. This is it's a mixed bag, we'll say. Our state legislature, and the reason I have this young lady up here with a magnifying glass is that's because this is where fair districts is focusing. We are focusing on the redrawing of our 253 state legislative elected districts. Not a whole lot of folks do that. Lots of folks will be on this side, the congressional districts, all right? So let's take a look at one at a time here. The LRC, the Legislative Reapportionment Committee, controls, it's a 5-person committee who will control the drawing of our 253 districts. Who are the players? You can see it's leadership. Senate majority lead, Senate minority, the House majority, House minority. They're the 4 elected representatives or senators who then are elected by their caucuses for a leadership role in Harrisburg. The 5th person is Mark Nordenberg, who is the chair and often the deciding vote as the LRC goes down. Mark Nordenberg is a former dean of, I think, the University of Pittsburgh Law School. I think that's his background. So he's a longtime lawyer and a longtime academic as well. And he's been put in the hot seat. The problem is, again, he was, by definition, by the Pennsylvania Constitution, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed Mark Nordenberg as the chair of this all-important committee. And they've been busy. They've been working since May or June to focus on the maps here. And these are their guidelines. Not a whole lot there, but that's their guidelines to focus on. With what will be our 17 congressional maps for next year, it's different because it's a like I said, a legislative fight. And right now the Rs have a majority, and the leadership on the R side will draw. We'll drive it. We have the House State Government Committee and the Senate State Government Committee. Representative Webster is a member on the House State Government Committee. To date, our take from fair districts these have been somewhat partial. They are political processes, as we are told over and over again. But this is where we're at right now. This one, we believe, there has been public hearings. Both groups have been doing some public hearings. But this is how things work. All right? So it's a small circle of leaders who are driving this process here right now. Most folks are left out of the process here. So far, so good. And I want to instill in Ken, and I know that Justin will do the same. We're talking about a sense of urgency. We have the maps need to be ready for the next election round. So the next election round are primaries in May of 2020. So not that far away. And if you work your way backwards, is that our Pennsylvania Department of State is desperate. They're saying we need the new maps. Don't do this to us. It takes a lot of work to get ballots squared away, to get everything, all the prep work done, to get elections ready for folks like us to go and vote. So the Department of State, which administers elections in our state, is saying, please, I need all of these maps, all 3 new maps, approved and ready to roll by January 24th. That's not that far away. So where we are right now is that you heard a lot of conversation, a lot of news about the census data, the delays we have in the census data due to the pandemic. So the census data, the good news is the Census Bureau has done a good job of delivering data, and we talk about easy data, don't worry about that. But what's happening right now is that the public has access to that same data, final set. And what we mean by easy data, it's kind of IT-ish in the sense that it's in data formats that most people can work with. That's all that really means, as opposed to some very, very nasty data formats that very few people can really work with. So right now, we're on the cusp of the end of the public cycle, or the public segment for these committees. They've been holding committee meetings somewhat infrequently for the last 2-3 months. I've attended a few. There's not a whole lot going on, but they are here to provide input or get experts to come in and provide testimony to these commissions, either on the congressional side or the state maps. and say, let's go, let's hear from them, because we've got a lot of work to do. But if you take a look at this data, just one other date that we at Fair Districts have kind of drawn a conclusion to, and it is fundamental to why we're here tonight, is we think that all public input to these commissions needs to be submitted by October 13th. It's about a month away. I'm here tonight, and Justin is here tonight, and told him to ask you guys one thing. Much of this you'll forget, no doubt. Well, Olivia has the PowerPoints and is happy to share it with everybody here. And the idea is that we want you to think about this. You're all voting age citizens of Pennsylvania. We want this to be your problem as much as anyone else needs to voting age citizens who think this is a problem as well. It's not cool to be part of a state that's often labeled and has been labeled accurately as a gerrymandered state. That means that politicians, political leaders are playing with us. They're manipulating us or ignoring us in many cases so they can continue to do their thing. Obviously that's wrong. It dilutes the reason we have elections and voting and legitimate contenders as well as candidates or even existing representatives and senators who have the right intentions, who want to do the right thing, who want to get things done. But for all the bad reasons, these maps come down and they drive away their common competitors. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what can you do. The process, again, I just want to remind you, this is a closed-door process run by 5 to 7 people. That's it. Has a direct impact on 13 million Pennsylvania citizens. We fought very hard for 4 years in Harrisburg to remove this process from the politicians and to give it to independent citizens commissions. The most recent example would be Michigan in 2018 has moved from politicians voting maps to citizens of voting age who could draw the maps as well. Well, that didn't happen for us in Pennsylvania. We won't be giving up, but in the meantime, we've got to deal with the reality of a small circle of friends, political leaders in Harrisburg, working largely behind the scenes to draw these maps. We hope by early November, that preliminary maps for House and Senate, these guys over here, will come out. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Drawing 50 maps in Pennsylvania, a little bit tough. It's a little bit tough. For example, a state senator has to represent about 260,000 citizens. A state rep, that number's going up. We think about 64, 65,000. So that's enough phone calls or emails to take in one day. So that's a big number. Anybody covered. There's a lot of people to effectively represent. And congressional, the people we send to Washington. Right now, that number is covered around 750,000. That number will go up. We've got more people in the U.S. from 10 years ago to today, so that number is going up. So effective representation with those numbers is a real challenge. But when you couple that with maps that are set up to bypass that real urgent need for equitable representation, we've got real problems with our political systems in this country. So keep that in mind. I want you to start thinking about testimony. And this is my last slide. We'll talk about, but this is what the criteria. This is what Fair Districts is looking for. Actually, my next other slide. Well, what we're looking for, follow the Pennsylvania Constitution. We're particularly focused on the LRC, the Legislative Enforcement Commission, drawing our 253 maps. This is a Harrisburg problem. Redistricting and gerrymandering is a Harrisburg problem. It is not a Washington problem. It has to be solved in Harrisburg. Just keep that in mind. All right? So, do we follow the Pennsylvania Constitution? Is there a max number of majority minority districts? Not too far from here. We're not that far, but a million miles away, the other side of the universe, is Pottstown. Pottstown, Brown, largely poor, underrepresented. Harden, 2. At the state rep level, school districts split into 2. You go to Reading, same thing. Carved up district, election laws. When you look at how the congressional maps work, same thing. We've got a number of examples in Pennsylvania where there's no reason not to have a maximum number of what we believe should be majority minority districts. It can be done And some of our math exercises we've gone through, so that's certainly doable. Some of the other criteria we're looking for right now, I showed those numbers. Follow those basic population gauges. Those are big numbers, 800,000 for a congressperson in Washington. They're big numbers. It's interesting that Montgomery County, if we look at the census data, I think our numbers are going to come up above 830,000, something to believe the numbers I've seen. So you could make the case that Montgomery County should have something similar to what this is at the congressional level, which is a nearly complete county with one dedicated congressperson. Just think if you were the county commissioner, the maps that came down in 2011 had parts of 5 different congresspeople's districts in it. 5 different congresspeople allegedly were representing parts of Montgomery County. Not one of those 5 congresspeople lived in Montgomery County. That's how badly Montgomery County or other candidate purple areas could be carved out. Can't let that happen. So that's a big deal. So was it split more than necessary? We're really keeping an eye on the crazy splits that go down. Again, go no further than, is anyone here from Upper Dublin Township? So, but Upper Dublin is a population of 27,000 good citizens. And it's very simple, based on registration and voting patterns from 10 years ago. It got cut into 3 different state reps. 3 different state reps. One school district had 3 different state reps, carved up strategically to make sure that Party A benefited from the next election cycle for the 2 elections. It's nonsense, it's obvious, we know what they're trying to do, and it has to stop. Other criteria we look at here was my local voting precincts. This is really a bad thing. Precincts, that's your neighborhoods. Small collection of neighborhoods. Precinct splitting is nutsy as well. But again, you have to keep in mind that the map makers have used voting pattern data. It's accessible. It's all maps. You can look at it. You're not looking necessarily at your vote in the most recent election. They can look at your neighborhood, your community, and take a look at it. How's this trending? Where's it going, et cetera. Let's make sure that we've got our bases covered when we draw things. And again, when you take a look at the gerrymandering, again, I'm going to leave this here. There's really only 2 primary ways for gerrymandering. One is packing a district. One party, typically a minority party, if you will, the minority party in Harrisburg, will pack as many of that party into one district, leaving more room and more candidate districts for one party. So packing is done. Where I lived in 2011, I lived in a packed congressional district where I said, hey, how this happen? There were all kinds of folks, all kinds of Democrats coming in from Philadelphia. I said, well, I don't live in Philadelphia anymore. What am I doing with all these nice people from Philadelphia? But it was a zigzag congressional district that packed in, became an 85% Democratic district. So that candidate who runs there, life is good, I'm going to win every time. So they left a lot more room to nitpick and find plenty of space for the other party to lean candidates and get votes. The other one, as I mentioned, is tracking or splitting, if you will, districts to dilute the power of particular voting block. To carve them up. Pottstown I used as an example at the state rep level. Pottstown got tossed in the last election, in the last 2011 now, state rep, got tossed into rural Chester County. It wasn't quite the same mix, so they became kind of a permanent minority in a very comfortable one-party district. So these are things that become pretty obvious here for a while. Natural geographic boundaries, we have rivers in our area. In Pennsylvania, we have a lot of mountains that create issues, but we keep an eye on those as well. And lastly, then we take a look at, we have to be careful with the phrase communities of interest, because anybody can belong to any kind of communities of interest. These are the ones that we focus on. Say these are legit, typically some kind of